Hello, I'm Corey, and welcome to the Order of the Dead Unicorn, the tabletop role-playing game club. Our doors are open, so come in and discuss RPGs with us. I love how tabletop role-playing games have this ability to inspire like no other medium I've come across. It practically begs people to come up with new rules, new genres to explore, and new ideas, or how existing ideas can be combined in different ways. The community around tabletop role-playing games is relentless in its ability to create, and I want to take a moment and feature one such person, Mark Baran, who is taking a gamble on his idea, simply titled Night. I sat down and talked with him about his inspirations, the feel of his game, the setting, and what it offers. When making Night, what were your influences? Where did you start from? What's kind of your background here?
I was telling you about Traveller and how I really like those minimalist sort of rule
minimalist
systems,
games.
where it's more about the player sort of interacting with the environment in some way, or interacting with non-player characters, or something in some way. So that really got me onto that. And then I sort of drifted over to L5R because a friend of mine was a deep player. He was deep into the RPGs of the 90s, and he got me into L5R, and obviously, having watched Yojimbo and Seven Samurai and all the rest of that sort of stuff, I was really keen on the whole setting. And from there, I mean, despite the mechanics and everything like that, that focus on telling a gripping, dramatic story really said something to me from there. So I guess they're my main influences. You can't fault D&D for getting everyone into the hobby, and then looking at the minimalism, and then L5R. So before getting into the more modern systems, those would be where I got my original inspiration from anyway. And I couldn't help tinkering with every system I ever came across.
So your game Night, you have a different design ethos for this game. First off, you don't have a pass-fail system. You have a system of consequences. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So originally I got the consequences from a game called Blades in the Dark, which you probably heard of. But and that comes from Powder not in the Apocalypse type games. But it came to me that your characters are capable. They're supposed to be good. We're not usually playing people who aren't very good at stuff. So it's not necessarily that that they fail at a job, right? So, the idea of a thief coming up to a lock and then just being like, oh, failed, my lock picks are broken, I failed, can't do this door. It just struck me as something that didn't make a lot of sense to me. So a consequence, on the other hand, would be something that adds interest to the game. So again, with that thief coming up, if she says, if this thief rolls a consequence, I mean, for Night, obviously, you're not thieves as such, but if this thief would roll a consequence of some sort, then maybe some guards notice her, or there's a ticking time that countdown starts happening, or something like that. So that idea of consequences, which I stole wholeheartedly from Blades in the Dark, I just think that it fits narratively a whole lot better, and the players at the table are more engaged because they know they're going, with my game at least, you're always at least partially successful. It's not that you fail. You're always either partially or completely successful. You're working towards your goal. So everyone knows that they're going to get there, it's just whether they can get there in time before the consequences will have a problem for them that they need to deal with something else.
You chose an Arthurian setting for this. Like most games nowadays, they like to create their own fantasy world, their own, maybe it's a little inspired by something in history, but here you took a very kind of historically mythological book, that stories everybody knows, that's part of the zeitgeist for like centuries. So what made you take the Arthurian legends rather than create something new from whole cloth?
Okay, so to be clear, my game doesn't actually use the Arthurian legends as such. Because it's a story-based game, you're creating the legends as you go, but it is in the theme or the style or the genre of Arthurian legends. So I definitely took Arthurian legends. I cracked out my old Morta Arthur and, Once and Future King and all the rest of that sort of stuff when I was doing this, just to get the feel of it, just to understand what's going on. Read a whole bunch of fairly tedious ancient legends on the matter as well. But that being said, there's something to them, and I think that's the reason why I picked it. In a way, it was like me picking up that book when I was when I was a kid in school. King Arthur, knights, swords, dragons, magic, witches, fairies, all of that sort of stuff. It's all there, and I think a lot of people understand the legend. Even if they've never seen it, even if they've never come across the Sword in the Stone Disney movie or any of those types of things, they've understood King Arthur, and so this concept of being someone who is a hero but actually has a code of that they are, try to remain true to. I think is something that is that all the players and my play testers of things have actually commented on it, because they're knights. They're powerful social people, and they are beholden almost to nobody except for, say, a king or something. So their actions in the game are almost, whether they do good things or bad things or anything that happens in the game, it's almost more meaningful because they chose to do it even when they didn't need to.
Your game has an interesting turn-based system where, where you have a round where it is like your basic dungeon delving kind of thing. You go, you take a quest, you finish that quest, and then the next thing you do is we pull out to like an overworld, and it becomes like a real-time strategy empire building game.
I was playing a whole lot of Crusader Kings 3, which is a real-time grand strategy type thing at the time, right? And but the difference between that and like a 4X of some other thing like Total War or something like that is that time goes by, but little stories happen all the time. And that's what I wanted to focus on in this. So it's not, so you go on an adventure and then you come home and you're a knight. So you've got to look after your land. So, if you're a husband or something like that, what's going to happen is you're going to roll on there. You're going to pick one of your family members every time you go back. Like, what did they get up to during this time when you were away? Or when you're back at your own fief looking after your serfs or your peasants or something like that, some sort of stories happen to do with your own family, your own dynasty, your own legacy. So, if you're married to, I don't know, if you've got a husband, you roll on there, and it goes, oh, look, romance. Well, now it's up to the player to go, well, what's this romance thing that happens with my husband? Does he does he attempt to be more romantic towards me? And so then we play out this scene. And that might be a little 5-minute scene, or maybe something longer, or it could be you roll and there's a raid. So we zoom back in because you and your friends, hopefully the other knights, might show up because a whole bunch of rampaging barbarians are attempting to steal all your sheep. It's just all of these little stories that happen separate from the main quest line itself that might be going on in the big picture. On top of that, the players are the ones who are generating the new adventure seeds. So not only are these little stories happening with your family and your background and things like that, but they put things on the map. You draw a map, everyone together, you draw a little map, and it's mostly blank to start with, but the more you play the game, the more it fills in. So player A, let's call her Sarah, she might say, well, over here is a tower, and that tower's got some ogres in it. And you're like, okay, fair enough. Maybe that's a quest later on that the knights have to deal with, and if they choose to ignore it, well, maybe those ogres come out and start eating people. That's a choice that the knights have to deal with, basically. And everyone is always adding more to the map, more adventures, more little stories, creating this grand legacy, this generational aspect to it.
What kind of experiences do you want your players and game masters to get from your game?
This is a campaign game. It's never going to see its maximum, like a one-shot is not going to see its full power that it has. Your first knight that you create goes on 10 adventures, 10-ish. And then there's a time skip. And then you go and play their heirs for 10 more adventures. So all of those things that the people have added to the map, they're all still happening. You play your own heir. Your parent might still be alive. They might be dead. That previous character is now retired. Whatever their choices they made, they reflect on you. To answer your question, that's what people are going to get out of this game. This rounded story, not just one story of one cool knight going off to slay one dragon. It's a collection of stories. It's a collection of bits all built together to make a bigger, trying to avoid using the word tapestry for a medieval sort of idea, but there we are. It just creates a larger sort of picture for everybody to be involved in, and especially over the generation of these two characters had just had extra family members, and they rolled on it. The two family members got into a duel of a dog, and over who was the better dog. They ended up drunk and with swords, killed each other, and now the main characters found themselves fighting each other because of a thing that was to do with the dog that they never cared about. So it's just all of these little stories add up together to make a bigger story.
What does the end game look like? How do you know you're finished with your campaign?
If playing the game in the Avalon setting, which I assume, it is distinctly an end. There is an end point, which I stole off the game Band of Blades, actually, which is another great game. I really like the idea of a game that has a distinct end point. Players know they're aiming to create a story, a feeling around the table by that point. In the King Arthur mythos, the Battle of Camden, I think, can't remember exactly. That's the one where Mordred kills him and he kills Mordred right at the end of all of the King Arthur legends anyway. So it's that replicated. All of the things, the consequences of everything that all of the lineages and things have built up should pile in together at that point to create a real climactic event. And one which, to be honest, if you follow it, they're not going to win. They might not lose. They might be alive. But by that point, you have played through 30 adventures, 30 plus minor little stories, built this remarkable map. It's time for that story to come to an end, and everyone can tie it up, wrap it in a bow, and say, you know what, that was great, but now it's finished, and I've completed.
When people think of Night, what's the first thing you want them to think? If you could bottle up Night and sell it as a perfume, what is it?
It's a collaborative, generational-based game about knights and knightly houses, which is all about legacy and consequences.
You're going on Kickstarter. This is a Kickstarter thing. You got only a certain amount of days to raise this money.
I do.
Yes. So everybody check out the link. Look at it for yourself. See if it's right for you. Thanks for watching and liking this video. Be sure to tell me what you think of Night in the comments, and thanks to Mark for talking with me about his creation. As of this video, I have 1,200 subscribers, and by 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons, that makes me a level 3 YouTuber. Help level me up to 4th by clicking that subscribe button. I think I get a fee. Thanks to my patrons who support this club. On our Patreon, we have some adventures and game supplements for Legend of the Five Rings and Dungeons & Dragons. You can grab them. Most of them are free. I wish you fun and adventure in your own games, so go roll some dice.